Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the DLC Drop Podcast. Today it's my pleasure to welcome Mark Neifeld. He is the commissioner and CEO of Sport Fishing League. He has an incredible career working events for the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Georgia Dome, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Texas Rangers. He's going to walk us through working through those amazing organizations and then going off on his entrepreneurial journey. Let's talk to Mark. Drop in the untold stories of industry leaders, influencers, and insights on future innovation. I'm John Davidson, and this is the DLC Drop Podcast. All right, welcome to another episode of the DLC Drop Podcast. Today it is my pleasure to welcome Mark Neifeld. He is currently the commissioner and CEO of Sport Fishing Championship. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, John. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, how long has it been since we've known each other? I want to say, are we at the 5-year mark yet?
Yeah, we're probably at the 5-year mark. So we're right about there.
Yeah. So first of all, tell us all about, give us that elevator pitch. Help us understand what is the Sports Fishing Championship, and then let's dive in from there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Sport Fishing Championship is the largest saltwater fishing championship series in North America. We're in our inaugural season right now. It debuted the last week of April. And basically from the third week of April through the third week of August, we run a championship that includes 11 tournaments all across North America, 5 in the Gulf of Mexico, we have 4 on the Atlantic seaboard, and then 2 down in the Caribbean. Ultimately, at the end of the year, what we're doing for the first time is awarding a champion for offshore fishing, which is bill fishing, blue marlin, white marlin, sailfish, spearfish, swordfish, first time we're doing that for this sport.
How far out into the water are you going?
Well, there's me, and I don't go out in the water very far. How far do the competitors and the anglers go?
Yeah.
They go. This week in Mississippi, they might go as far out. They'll probably start fishing 60 miles out.
Okay.
Then they'll start, some of the teams will go as far as 200, 220 miles. It's all about fishing canyons and structure in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's what's fascinating about the sport is that there are a lot of games within the game. But in the Gulf of Mexico, fishing is predominantly fishing the different canyons and structure. The Mississippi boats will go down to the Louisiana canyons, Grand Canyon, and then some of them will go fish oil rigs. The oil rigs start about 70 miles out, but they'll go about 200 miles out into the ocean.
That's super interesting. And I think most of the people who are listening to this episode have watched those freshwater fishing championships. You've seen those guys jump into those boats with the super high powered motors and then just race as fast as they can to get to that spot they have in mind. But, and I am a, complete novice when it comes to this. So I'm so interested in what you've developed here, but freshwater is pretty controlled, right? Because you got all sides of the water are encompassed by a lake. You can only go so far. There's probably time limits, etc. How is that different? How do you manage those very different uncontrolled nuances with saltwater fishing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the things that is challenging for us is that our arena, the ocean, it changes, day to day, hour by hour. And so, where the pelagic fish are going, that also changes when they're feeding, when they come up to the surface. From a management standpoint, look, what we're doing is extremely difficult. We have cameras on boats that might be 200 miles off the coast from, where the tournament is taking place. But then they spread out. The tournament this week will have probably about 90 boats. Last I heard, they'll have about 92 boats registered. We'll have cameras on 10 of them. Then we have chase boats. We can deploy drones from the chase boats. But you got to remember that even though they might be fishing the same canyon, they might be 50 miles apart. So we send boats out. They're constantly, collecting camera cards to bringing them back to Venice, Louisiana, which is one of the southernmost tips of the Gulf the northern Gulf Coast, and then we get them back there and they upload. And we do this on live television. So historically, fishing is a packaged show.
Yeah.
And that's not us. The first word is Sport Fishing Championship is sport. We wholeheartedly believe that sports are live and time and context is important. And so when we deliver a live show on CBS Sports on Saturday, and we're streaming on sportfishingchampionship.com Thursday, Friday, and Saturday afternoon, that live component is very important. People want to know what's happening in the tournament in real time.
Yeah.
It could even be, if we don't have a camera on board, they're radioing in, hey, we're hooked up to a blue marlin. If we have a chase boat nearby, we're going to try to get it over there, launch a drone, get the footage. But if not, our fans are, becoming very accustomed to our jingle that we have. That it's a catch alert, almost like the NFL draft when a player is selected. So
yeah,
jingle, and my head whips over the TV, and you see that one of the teams is hooked up to a blue marlin or another species.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
It's not easy.
The DLC Drop podcast is sponsored by Ice Shaker. I've been a huge fan of this brand for the past few years, ever since I met founder Chris Gronkowski. What I love about this product is the brand story, the functionality, and the customization. Ice Shaker is a Shark Tank company invested in by Mark Cuban and Alex Rodriguez, owned by NFL players Rob Gronkowski and Chris Gronkowski. I love using my Ice Shaker anytime I'm driving to the podcast studio, I'm going skateboarding, or I'm at the gym. No matter what I'm doing, it just does a great job of keeping my drinks hot or cold. The customization for Ice Shaker is something that's super unique. You can get any name, just about any logo engraved onto your Ice Shaker and delivered to you within just 3 to 5 business days. Get your own DLC Drop branded Ice Shaker at iceshaker.com/DLC Drop. Save 20% on all Ice Shaker products with the discount code DLC Drop. Yeah, it sounded like it was a little too simple to organize, so you had to have that live broadcasting component to it just to make sure you have a challenge.
Oh, and credit to our on-water production team, because we joke. My nickname on tour is the Fish Commish. So if I refer to myself in the third person as the Fish Commish, it's just it's a running thing within the SFC. But
that's amazing.
But credit to our camera guys, because they always say Fish Commish isn't going offshore. These guys are out there 16, 18 hours on the water, taking the chop in the sun, and they're looking through a lens the entire time. Because you never know when that fish hits, and it can run with it or it can get off, and it is a taxing profession, to say the least. But we've got the best guys in the business, and the camaraderie when they get back on shore, and the stories that they're telling. It's so great. The energy is it's amazing.
Worse jobs to have than to be on a boat out in that beautiful weather all day, I'm sure.
Unless you get seasick.
There's a wrinkle. Yeah. So I'm curious, people who are listening to this, they're thinking, wow, this is probably very complicated. This is very ambitious. And one of the things that I love sharing is helping to understand how somebody came from their origin to where they are today. And a lot of times where you maybe that first stop to today, it's not a straight line. But I know a little bit of your story, so I can kind of see how this is shaped all the way to taking on this incredible task that you're crushing today. Why don't you help us understand, how did this start for you, and help us weave that web of how you got here today?
Yeah. So I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, and I'm going to come back to that because it's pretty important for the story of the Sport Fishing Championship. But I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, and after graduating at Florida State, I went to work for the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning.
There you go. So, give them a shout out.
I'm hoping that in a couple of weeks we can say back-to-back-to-back.
The birthplace of hockey, arguably, Florida.
Yeah, exactly. I loved working there. I only worked there for a little bit over a year. Started an internship with them in corporate communications, and was really doing event marketing. And that was during the recession, the 07, 09 recession. So there weren't very many jobs out there. I was happy to work for free for a team that I grew up cheering for. And what was happening in that period of time as well was the launch of social media. We were one of the organizations really on the front end of developing social media and digital media strategies. And you got to remember, back at that time, major corporations, Walmart didn't have a Facebook page. Had been out there, but so anyway, we were, it was exhilarating. It was fun. I was a young guy fresh out of college working for, a team that I loved, and I loved working for the organization. It's a fantastic organization. I was happy to actually see that the Sports Business Journal recognized them a week or two ago in the SBJ Awards as Sports Organization of the Year. So cool. Just a tremendous group of people that work there. But I always had a passion to work in the National Football League. And so I was given the opportunity to go and work for the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. And so I left the Tampa Bay Lightning and I worked for the Georgia Dome, 4 seasons with the Dome, running Atlanta Falcons home games. So I say running, I was an event coordinator. So I was really running around working for the people that ran the games. Yeah. But it was I loved working in Atlanta. Again, I've just had the privilege of working for just such tremendous organizations that gave me opportunities when, maybe they hadn't been earned yet, but gave me the opportunity to go out and prove myself or fail. But I was working for the Georgia Dome, and I was the kind of pinnacle of my early career was serving as the event manager for the 2013 75th anniversary of the NCAA Final Four.
Wow.
It's that picture right there. And I think that's one of the game balls.
Really? That's a cool thing to have.
Yeah. So, it was a big opportunity. We used to call the event manager the quarterback. In this case, I guess I was the point guard. But for the 75th anniversary, we had, we had more events going on than we typically did. We did the Division II and Division III basketball championships across the street at, I believe it's now State Farm Arena, where the Atlanta Hawks play. The convention center was completely full with activities. And then we had in Centennial Olympic Park, we had the music festival. So everything was right there in our campus. I kind of served as the, main point of contact between the NCAA and all of our internal departments on the campus. And anyway, it was just a feather in the cap in my career. And, I loved working on championship sports. I was fortunate during my time there also working on the SEC football championship and WWE WrestleMania and lots of soccer matches and Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Chick-fil-A kickoff games. And so, in Atlanta, we just had such a great roster of events that would come through that facility. Got poached by the Dallas Cowboys. We were actually building Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We were coming out of the ground, and I was given the opportunity to come work for the Dallas Cowboys organization. So the Final Four was 2013, and in 2015 I came out. And the main goal was to, basically serve as in the same role as I did with the Final Four for the inaugural college football playoff national championship. So I came out in 2014. Our game was in 2015, January of 2015. And that was the first CFP. And, I was with the Cowboys for a number of years. Again, just another world-class organization. Jones does everything, in my opinion, the right way. I will say this, I've always been an aspiring entrepreneur. And having the opportunity to go and work inside of a Jones family organization. Yeah. I was a sponge. I still am a sponge, but I was a sponge at that point, trying to learn everything I possibly could, given the opportunity that I had. From there, I went on. I was a vice president for the Texas Rangers and the new ballpark project, which is now Globe Life Field. And I think at that point, I had really kind of reached the point where, I wanted to go begin my entrepreneurial journey. And leave. And
quick question on that. Was there something that was really the catalyst or the moment where you said, I'm ready to do this? Or was this kind of a slow build inside of you where you kind of said, well, I think I've learned everything I can from other people. Let me see what I can do on my own.
It was a little bit of both. Yeah. And I think you and I probably had this conversation a couple of years ago when you started your journey. But, there was somebody that, I dearly respect and had the opportunity to work with in my life who said to me, Mark, you're an entrepreneur. Somebody else called me a wild horse. And they said, you really just you don't need to be in these big organizations. You need to go do what you do and go be free, go be creative and go take the leap. The time is now. No one's, I was about to say, nobody ever tells you when it's time to be an entrepreneur. I mean,
sure.
I think I'd like to say, I've always been an entrepreneur. It's just who I am. And, there's a big part of me that feels like that's why I'm on this planet, is to I love what I do. And whether it's working on fishing or whether it's working on, other projects, I own other businesses or mentoring other young entrepreneurs. I love it. I think that's one of the best parts of America and capitalism and job creation and all of that. But no, to answer your question, somebody approached me and said, Mark, no one's ever going to tell you that today's today. Mm-hmm. So I went and I took the leap, and I started Complex Sports and Entertainment. We had a great 3-year ride. And then, unfortunately, when COVID happened, our business was bringing people together on college campuses. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that's one of the worst jobs you can have during a global pandemic. So the facilities that we worked for years to get the event booking rights, and we were developing sports properties to bring people together. All of it, I forget what day it was in March of 2020, but
the 14th, I could tell you, because I had the greatest trip to Florida ever planned. Week in Miami with the Miami Misfits homestand, business meetings in Orlando, canceled it all the day before it all went down. Yeah.
I remember somebody calling me, and I won't say who it was, but we had a property that we owned and managed called Monster Hydro Stadium Blitz. It was with Rob Gronkowski, and the Gronkowski brothers were partners in it. And we were on stop 3 or 4 on the tour.
Yeah.
And we had really just kind of started to pick up speed. And keep in mind, that's a property that took about a year to develop already. So we already put on a lot of time, energy, effort, and resources into the development of the property. And somebody called me and said, hey, it was one of the stops on tour. They said, we need you to cancel your event. Keep in mind, this is like the stop on tour that we had sold more registrations than probably the 3 previous combined.
Right.
So I'm sitting there going, well, why are we doing this? We're making some tough decisions. And you got to remember, this is before everything that happened in March of 2020. COVID-19 was still something that was in China to a lot of us. And so I remember making the comment, hey, if we cancel this event, opening day will have already happened. The NCAA Final Four will have already happened. You will have already had your spring game. The Masters will have already happened.
Yeah.
So why am I canceling an event at the end of April? And we didn't have the information at the time.
Sure.
And so ultimately we ended up canceling it, and it just, it was obviously the right decision for a number of reasons. But I just remember, that day, that was really like that was the day that it really just felt like the world had changed. And that particularly in sports and entertainment, the world stopped.
Yes.
Yeah,
at the time I was full-time for PRG, the world's largest entertainment production company. So, boy, it was pretty crazy seeing close up, the company that puts on more events than anyone in the world have 90% of their business stop immediately, which is a pretty rough one. Well, I really appreciate you walking me through this career path, the Lightning, the Georgia Dome, the Cowboys, the Rangers, then your own company with Complex, and then obviously Sport Fishing Championship. A couple questions I have. One is so you had worked for all these big corporations, right? And then you start your own. How is it different running your own than working for these others, even if they empowered you greatly?
I mean, it's apples and oranges. It's hard to even explain how. I mean, with Complex or with Sport Fishing Championship, there's no roadmap.
Right.
There's no senior level person to tell you how to do your job.
Right.
You have to find people that believe in you and will invest in you. And that could be, through partnerships, that could be through, opportunities. But no one's ever going to sit down and teach you, at least not in my experience. No one's ever going to sit down and teach you, A, how to be an entrepreneur, and B, how to launch a business.
Yeah.
Some people will coach you on those things, but nobody's going to sit down and tell you, everything that you need to know how to run a big business. And again, there's a lot of great mentors out there. There's a lot of great, books, and people spend a lot of time. But when the rubber hits the road and the work has to get done, it comes down to the individual. I can't say that it's that, that you don't do that working for a big organization like the Dallas Cowboys. You don't. I mean, you ultimately have to do your job. You have to do it well. You have to earn the respect of your peers and, the people that work, with you, whether they're your clients or people within the organization. But you have a role. When you were the founder, and CEO of a startup, your role is everything.
Yep.
So, I was joking this morning. I was on a call with one of the stakeholders in SFC, and we've raised millions of dollars. We've raised another couple million in sponsorship, and still last Saturday I was doing graphic design for Sport Fishing Championship. So,
right.
And that's probably a little bit of me as well. Like I still enjoy it. Some of it's therapeutic. A lot of this from me. And my passion in branding and integrated brand marketing and areas to business like that. But I don't know at what point you ever stop bootstrapping things. Like, so that's where we're at. I joke also. I mean, the first, and I'm proud to say it, like the first Sport Fishing Championship event that we had, live on CBS Sports. We've made a tremendous impact to the Grand Isle community that we were in, and it was a wild success every way you look at it. But I drove a U-Haul from Texas to Louisiana,
right?
Just because somebody had to do it. So,
well, it's kind of all hands on deck, and most of the hands are yours. I think there's a big positive and negative in being an entrepreneur, and they are both that you are in charge. It's like, awesome, I can do whatever I want, and then this all falls on me, like the buck stops here, sort of a thing.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think the one thing that being an entrepreneur, like, you're never off, you're never not working.
Correct.
And I own another business down in Florida. I own a boat club that we started, and we built all the technology back end and stuff like that. That business is doing very well as well. But that's nights that's not nice. That's weekends and holidays. So that boat business is always running, and I've got a great general manager that runs the business and great business partners in it. But again, you're never off. But that's okay. I'm a glutton for punishment. I love it. It's just something that I enjoy it so much, and seeing, the little seeds that you plant and watch them grow, and, navigate, every step of the way to, try to build a great business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a great reason for your success is that mindset. I have a question for you regarding the Dallas Cowboys, and then I want to get a little bit into, disrupting industries and these subcultures, the parallels with esports and other things. You worked for a lot of different amazing organizations, professional sports teams, of course, but the Dallas Cowboys uniquely are the most valuable sports franchise in the world when you factor in all sports, which is pretty incredible. What was one of the top 2, 3 things that you took away working closely with the Jones family that you said, this is special, this is unique, I want to replicate doing this in my business?
Yeah, another great question. I just really appreciated working for an entrepreneur like Jerry and the way that he builds value for his business, the value that he puts on the star, and everything that goes into protecting that star and protecting the brand and protecting the identity of the Dallas Cowboys and what that means. There is a day that you put that star on as an employee and it means something it's just a little different. So to respect any other, business that I have. And, we try to do the same thing every day with the Sport Fishing Championship with our trophies, that if you wear that, you're representing everything with Sport Fishing Championship and our guests and our anglers and, partners. But, the things I took away working for the Cowboys, I mean, I summarize things like they do it the right way. They put the appropriate amount of time and energy, effort, focus, the resources into being able to do your job as well as you possibly can do it.
Yep.
And, Jerry and Dallas Cowboys being a private business and a family-owned business, they truly want their employees, I'll even say the players on the field, the trainers off the field, the coaches, staffs, everybody in the organization, you feel like you have the attention and the resources to do your job at the highest level. And if you don't, they'll listen to you. Cool. If you said, I need X, in fact, that happened to me when I got hired. Will Hunter is a really good friend of mine. Will is vice president of operations for the Pac-12, and he was in my role before me. When I got hired, I came in and I said, hey, Jeff Stroud was the general manager at the time. And I said, Jeff, I need 2 more staff. He said, okay, we got 2 more staff. So we hired 2 event coordinators. About a year later, I said, Jeff, I need 2 more staff. What are they going to do for you? And I, had the job descriptions written all out. We got it. And so Will and I are still really, really good friends to this day. And Will, I laughed because he's like, when I opened that stadium, I was doing the same number of events that you were doing, and it was just one Will Hunter. And I look at you, and you've got 5 of you now.
Wow.
But I think that just, goes back to your question, is that, it really showed that they're committed to improving every step of the way. That they build, at the time, and probably maybe a little biased, but still is the best facility in the country, sports facility, multi-purpose facility, I would say, in the country. And that, you don't just go out and you're perfect on day one. They want to make sure that, that every day, everywhere in the organization is just getting a little bit better. And that's what I take away, because I say that all the time, whether it's to our investors or staff or our TV production teams or on-air talent, whatever it is, 1% better. That's all I ask every day. Just get 1% better every day. And if you can do that, you go back and you look 100 days later and look how far you've come. And we're at a point right now, we're halfway through our Sport Fishing Championship inaugural season, and everybody's asking me, we're already planning 2023 and 2024. And a lot of people are asking me, how do you feel? And my response back is, well, everybody around us is very happy. And we're getting a little better every day. And that's all I can ask as a startup CEO right now, is that, we're getting a little bit better every day.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think there's a lot to how well a team will work when they know that the organization is behind them, when they don't feel like they're penny pinching. Of course, that has to, when you're the owner, that comes from both sides. You need to manage your budgets and things of that nature. But if I'm working for somebody and I feel like they are doing their best to help me succeed, and now I have the best chance to do my best work, that's really inspiring and results in success. And it's that mindset of investment for an ROI, right? Not just kind of managing scared, if you will.
Yeah, and an employee that feels invested in, I feel like it's going to work a little bit harder, give you a little bit more of their attention, and because they in all sense of the word, they feel invested in, and they want to make that same investment into their job because they care. So.
Right. There's a lot of validation there, and I think people respond to validation in many ways. One of those ways is subcultures who have brands and companies come in and support what they're doing. This morning, you and I were talking on the phone, and we were talking about some of the different parallels of the esports subculture that I work in every day, and this subculture that you have broken into with saltwater fishing. One of the things that is most impressive to me about what you're doing is not just the complicated logistics and how ambitious it is, but this is the first time the saltwater fishing or sport fishing industry has seen something like this. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely at this scale on the saltwater side.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you I was going to come back to Sarasota, Florida when we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
I basically in that COVID year, I went back to my roots, and I was, it really was what makes me happy. If you can build a business around what makes you happy, then I'm not sure if you ever work a day in your life. And so, I go back to the community that I grew up in and that I'm passionate about, and that was saltwater fishing. I hadn't been a part of the community for a while. I'd been, in Atlanta and Dallas, and I still live in Dallas. So saltwater fishing isn't something that I get the opportunity to do every day, although I love it. But it felt to me that community that was very near and dear to my heart was underserved. And that what was out there in the marketplace, when we talk about, competitive, championship angling, was really on the freshwater side.
Right.
And for a guy that grew up in Sarasota, Florida, who doesn't bass fish, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for people that, fish competitively, bass fishing, or any other type of fishing. But, for me, there wasn't really that connection.
Sure.
Because that's just not part of my DNA. The fabric of, me growing up is being out on the boat on the saltwater every day, fishing the Tampa Bay and Sarasota Bay.
Right.
And so, I really feel like a big part of what we're doing. I don't even feel, I know, I talk to people every single day. A big part of what we're doing is satisfying a lot of people like myself that are, inshore, offshore, saltwater anglers that, feel like there's been this, there's just this hole in the marketplace right now. And we're coming in and we're providing something for them.
Yeah. I love that point about building a business around what makes you happy, and then also around not really being able to resonate directly with the freshwater. Where that takes me is, this is a great key for entrepreneurs to say, what is my entry point, right? And so it's like, first of all, okay, what makes me happy? What do I do? What do I enjoy doing, even if I wasn't getting paid for it? But for you, in this instance, you're so integrated in this saltwater fishing lifestyle growing up that you're the perfect person to support this under-supported group, because you've lived and breathed it. You understand those cultural nuances. And when you're coming into the space, you're coming in a way that they respond to, because you're them, right? You're all part of the same community.
I'll make my first, esports, comparison here, but, between the different segments of fishing, inshore fishing might be Call of Duty and offshore might be Fortnite. And to the outsider, it's the same thing. But unless you get in and you really understand, the differences between the two games, that's what, in competitive angling, that's what they are. We're playing a game. It's very, very, very different to the competitor.
Yeah.
So I say that because for me to come in, and I'm an inshore guy and we're running offshore. Right now, it's very different. But what do? We get the best people together. We get the anglers, we get the tournament directors, we get the brands, we get the media, we get people that have worked in this industry for a long time, and we get them to collaborate. And I think that's really, what has and is going to continue to set the sport fishing championship apart from others, is that, it's really a big collaborative effort from a lot of different stakeholders in the industry that just want to see this succeed.
Yeah.
And that we're all very invested in making sure that, I always say, somebody asked me last week, they said, what business are you in? I said, we're in the business of creating a legacy championship for saltwater fishing. He goes, well, you're in the media and sponsorship business. I go, yeah, that's what we do day to day, but the business that we're in is creating a legacy championship. At any rate, again, there's those different nuances that are unique to the individual communities. There's no way to come in and just, I told you this on the phone earlier today, there's not the top-down approach. You have to work with people in the industry,
right,
to really get that buy-in and do it the right way.
Well, I'm really interested too in some of the keys to developing this collaboration. I think one of the keys is understanding what people need, right? And so there's various stakeholders here. You've got the fishermen themselves. You have your camera operator. How do you get that crew, that production crew? How do you get the support from maybe these ports or, the people who are, have these boats? I don't know this industry, so I'm saying it all wrong, of course. But what are some of the keys that you have found successful to bringing together all these different stakeholders to collaborate for one goal?
Wow. It really just goes back to what I just said, is that if you get everybody bought into the idea that we're building a legacy championship for the next generation. Yeah. I walk into rooms and I say, let's just take 30,000 foot view. The golf, a recreational sport, has the PGA Tour. Yep. More people in the United States fish than play golf and tennis combined. And I always ask,
that surprises me. Yeah. Wouldn't have guessed that.
I said, why is there not a PGA Tour fishing? And that, going back to like the beginning of this, it started with discovery, and discovery is really just asking a lot of people questions and trying to get to the bottom of an answer. You have a business hypothesis out there, and you're going to go try to prove your business hypothesis wrong. And so you go and talk with people, or you want to validate it. I just really was asking that question for a long time. Why doesn't this exist? And what I learned from a lot of the stakeholders in the industry, in the sport, was that it had been tried. It's been a long time since it's been tried. It's been tried a couple of times. And my business hypothesis came back to one word, and it was access. I didn't dive into all the business nuances and stuff like that, but I had felt like the time is probably never more right to go do it than right now. And so, about a year and a half ago, we said, let's just go do this. So, that's where we are.
Well, I would think too, another major goal that you have to accomplish to get all these people to buy in is not only is this a goal that we all want to accomplish, but I and my team are the people to accomplish it, right? What is, if I'm in that boardroom and I'm one of these stakeholders and you walk in and you're trying to convince me, what are you telling me? Why is Mark and Sport Fishing Championship the right group to make this happen?
Yeah, it's funny because the first 6 months or so after we kind of got through discovery and then rolled into the plan of basically the roll up model was what we decided to do, was go work with the largest and oldest offshore fishing tournaments in North America, bring them together under one umbrella. Excuse me. And look, you have to have thick skin, and you have to be prepared to hear no 999 times for every yes. Sure. And you have to be committed to it. There were months that, every day could have walked away from the project. And I didn't. And as my team grew, we didn't, because we wholeheartedly believed that this is something that could be around for a long time. If you go into it because you want to be rich, or you want to go, make a ton of money, I don't know. You could go do that, but it's not, in my opinion, that's not the way that we do it. We go in, that's not what motivates me. And I can tell you from the people that are invested with us, that's not really what motivates them either. It's about going and building a legacy championship for our sport. You've got to get buy-in. And I'll tell you, the funny thing is, we talked a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are a pretty polarizing organization on the field.
Oh yeah, love them or hate them. That's right.
In February of 2021, imagine, being a saltwater angler tournament director sitting on the beach, at your marina, and Mark Neifeld, former Dallas Cowboy, calls you and you're in New Jersey. How many people, the first thing they said, I don't know if I can drop F-bombs on your podcast, but it was the Dallas Cowboys. It is what it is. You gotta, but that's what I love about it. I love, it is polarizing, but you're going to get a reaction one way or the other.
I don't think you're going to, well, thank goodness Philadelphia isn't on the ocean,
Well, Cape May, New Jersey is, and we're there in a couple of weeks. And we spend a lot of time in the Northeast. Yeah. But no, yeah, you just if you're committed to it, let's see. You there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
But yeah, if you're committed to it, and you just, don't give up. I mean, you have to believe in what you're building. You have to believe that there's a business behind it, and that your inclination is right, or that your business model is going to work, and that you're going to kind of refuse to take no for an answer, or you're going to find enough of the right people to say yes.
Yep.
Those are. That was what motivated me for about 10 months. I was working on the project, on my own. So
that's incredible. With about, let's say about 15 minutes here on the podcast, time flies, of course. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the innovation and the forward thinking ideas that you have for Sport Fishing Championship, because I love how you are taking this sport that's probably as old as time itself, going out into the ocean and catching fish, but also modernizing it and making it relevant to younger audiences as well.
Yeah, I've spent so much time talking about NFTs and the metaverse, and even this afternoon we had a licensing conversation. And look, I think that like any sport, whether it's fishing or basketball or hockey or football, you have to have a vision for where the consumer is going, and you can either choose to adapt and be on that train and that shift in how a consumer is day to day, or in some ways be left behind. We're actually the first pro sports championship awarding our grand prize in cryptocurrency.
Wow.
We announced that in February at the Miami International Boat Show. So our $1 million is going to be awarded in crypto.
Awesome.
The equivalent of $1 million. We just kind of take that approach that we have to be on the front end of all of these things. I mean, we have to, adapt and live with the times, or, in some ways be left behind. So I do joke about the metaverse sometimes. I say, hey, if the world is 75% salt water, the metaverse has to be 75% salt water as well.
Strong point.
Got a great game you can play in the metaverse. So
that's so funny. I think with, as far as the crypto salary, I think that's really interesting, because that's kind of, we're seeing some trends go that way. Odell Beckham Jr. took his salary from the Rams, I believe, solely in crypto. We've seen some things go that way. I think FaZe Clan recently did a big contest with a cryptocurrency, and the prize was in their currency. What was behind the decision, and what has been the response to something that's a little disruptive in that way?
Yeah, honestly, the competitors loved it. A lot of our boat owners, you have to understand, our competitor is very different. Going back to the analogy between, different games, our consumer is almost identical to golf. Saltwater angler and a golfer, they're almost identical, with the exception that there's no crossover. These are people that are early adapters. Whether that be with products, they invest a lot. I would say our average boat on tour probably costs north of $1 million.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to $2 And then you add in all the gear and rigs and stuff like that, plus all the work, that has to be done to keep the boat up and running all year. I mean, it's definitely, if you've ever been to our tournaments, it's definitely a Formula One type atmosphere.
Yeah.
A lot of money goes into the sport. And so, the day before we announced it, me and my executive leadership team, we were kind of looking around saying, should we do this or should we not? And I said, what's the harm? It's $1 million either way. I mean, you can go and cash it out for cash. And honestly, the response was better than we thought. I mean, everybody, they loved it. I mean, they just love, the little nuances. And for us, it gave, people another reason to talk about Sport Fishing Championship. And
True.
Again, for us to set the tone with who we are and that, we're going to look at everything that we do a little bit, I don't say a little bit differently. We're just going to analyze it and make the best decision for, Sport Fishing Championship.
I think that's smart. And I'll just go on the record personally that if someone's trying to give me $1 million, I'm pretty flexible in how I'll receive it. So
exactly.
Don't limit yourself. As we're about to close off here with you, Mark, first of all, thank you so much for being here. But I could talk to you forever. You've got this events experience. You've got this entrepreneurial experience, obviously disrupting an industry. It's all very exciting and interesting. If you wanted somebody to come away from this episode with one thing, with what you've learned through this career, what would that be?
You've got two guys on this podcast, John, you and myself have known each other now for a number of years. And, I remember when you made your entrepreneurial leap a number of years back, I remember where I was. I was walking in the backyard and I was on the phone with you and you're saying, Mark, I think I'm going to go do this. And, and I was one of those guys saying, John, you need to go do it. I can tell in your voice.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. Go be an entrepreneur. We've stayed in touch ever since. And, if anything, the one thing to take away, just work hard, have fun, enjoy your life. I mean, that's all I would say. I mean, I do what I do because I genuinely enjoy and love the atmosphere that I'm in. I love challenging myself creatively and challenging myself in business. And I love to travel. So, that's something that I get to do, Sport Fishing Championship. But, to sum it all up is just do what makes you happy, enjoy it. If you're going to go off and start a venture, do it at 200% and be dedicated to it, and everything will work out.
I love that. A lot of times in our work, we can forget to do what we enjoy, and we often spend most of our time working. So make it as enjoyable for yourself as possible is what I'm hearing from you. Lastly, how can people follow you? How can they follow Sport Fishing Championship in the way you'd like them to?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, Twitter, SFC Fish Commish. LinkedIn, I'm at Marky Neifeld. SportFishingChampionship.com. You can catch all the episodes of Sport Fishing Championship. CBS Sports. We're on CBS Sports Network Saturdays, most of the time between 9 and 11 or 8 and 10. We get some rears and stuff like that. But SportFishingChampionship.com. Go check us out. All of our handles are at Sport Fishing Championship. And, really hope to hopefully earn some new fans from this podcast. And if anything, we've opened your eyes to a different sport, and you've learned a thing or two.
Absolutely. Well, you've earned at least one today. And that's not me. I've been a fan for a long time. That's our sound guy in the back.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Mark. I learned a lot. We're so excited to watch what Sport Fishing Championship becomes as you continue to grow it, continue to disrupt this incredible industry. But for now, thank you so much for joining us today on the DLC Drop Podcast. Thank you for listening to the DLC Drop Podcast. This podcast is part of the Esports Future Podcast Network and produced by Innovation Media Enterprises. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast channel and leave us a review.